In late June 2026, temperatures across Europe shattered historical maximums simultaneously. Czechia reached 41.9 degrees Celsius, Germany hit 41.7, and Denmark recorded the hottest day in its history at 36.6 degrees. The intense heat forced cities into desperate measures, with authorities deploying riot control vehicles, like this police water cannon, just to mist public parks and offer urban populations a brief moment of relief. These maps show the meteorological cause of the heat wave, an atmospheric pattern known as an omega block. A persistent high-pressure system locked itself over Western and Central Europe, trapping hot Saharan air in place for days. This static pressure system acts like a lid on a pot, continually heating the air below until regional temperatures spiked up to 18 degrees Celsius above their seasonal summer averages. The high numbers are only part of the problem. Northern and Central European infrastructure was engineered specifically to retain heat during long, freezing winters. Residential air conditioning is incredibly rare. Without built-in passive cooling measures like deep shade or cross-ventilation, thick brick and concrete buildings absorb solar radiation all day, transforming urban apartments into sealed ovens. A sudden 20-degree spike past historical norms causes a physical breakdown of a continent pushed well past its limits of endurance. Concrete and asphalt have strict thermal limits. As the heat baked Germany, the A2 Autobahn outside Berlin had to be closed completely because the highway was literally bursting open under the sun. The rail network fared no better. The German national rail operator advised against all non-essential travel as the high temperatures warped steel tracks and caused overhead electrical wires to fail. To survive, populations plugged in fans and whatever portable cooling units they could find. This spike in electricity demand immediately strained a power grid already struggling with reduced wind production. This chart tracks electricity market prices during the heatwave across the Iberian Peninsula. You can see a sudden, vertical 80% increase in cost compared to historical summer averages as the grid struggled to keep up with cooling demands. The roads, rails, and power lines holding European society together were engineered for a climate baseline that no longer exists, making modern cities structurally incompatible with their new reality. When infrastructure fails, the burden of survival falls directly onto human biology. To measure biological stress, meteorologists use wet bulb globe temperature, or WBGT. This metric combines temperature, humidity, and direct sunlight to calculate the true physical strain on the body. The human body regulates its internal temperature through sweating. But as WBGT climbs, the air becomes too saturated with moisture to absorb any more. Sweat stops evaporating, and the body loses its ability to cool itself down. This map from World Weather Attribution shows the geographic extent of the impact. The red dots represent the 45% of analyzed European cities that broke their previous indoor wet bulb records during this 12-day period in June. The warming climate is hitting a biological wall. Once the wet bulb temperature crosses these thresholds, the human body's primary defense ceases to function. This thermal map shows tropical nights, highlighted in dark red. Here, ambient temperatures fail to drop below 20 degrees Celsius after sunset. Nighttime heat is rising twice as fast as overall global warming, remaining trapped over France and Germany, offering zero overnight relief. Without a cool night to recover, cumulative heat stress builds up in the body over days. This leads to severe dehydration, heat stroke, and heart failure, quickly overwhelming emergency rooms and drastically increasing mortality rates among the elderly. Extreme heat becomes a mass casualty event when high daytime temperatures are compounded by losing the biological safety valve of a cool night. It is tempting to write off the June 2026 heatwave as an isolated anomaly, a tragic, unpredictable accident. The data shows otherwise. Comparing the 2026 event against the 1976 heatwave, baseline warming from fossil fuel emissions means a similar weather pattern 50 years ago was 3.5 degrees cooler. And compared to the 2003 heatwave, daytime heat of this magnitude is now 10 times more likely. The Earth has experienced about 1.4 degrees Celsius of overall global warming. At just this level, we are already colliding with the absolute failure points of our society's ability to cope. Surviving this requires immediate, massive structural adaptation. Cities must retrofit buildings for efficiency, integrate widespread passive cooling designs, and overhaul struggling summer power grids. Without a rapid phase-out of fossil fuels and massive structural overhauls, the lethal extremes of 2026 will eventually be remembered as one of the coolest summers of the rest of our lives.